Ah, the Galactic University of Supreme Knowledge and absolutely correct facts that are never wrong. No, really, we promise. It's a mouthful, isn't it? But don't worry, the aliens who named it are quite proud of their creativity. Let's just call it Guskaktum for short. No, that's not any better. Fine, we'll stick with Galactic U. Happy now? Oh? Now picture this, a sprawling campus of crystalline spires reaching into the purple sky of Zeta Culiadri, IV, building more pretentious than the last. Hover cars zip between lecture halls, carrying students of 1,000 species, some with tentacles, others with too many eyes, and a few that look suspiciously like sentient farts. But hey, who are we to judge? Our story begins in the office of Dean Zix Snorp, a being who resembled nothing so much as a giant, wrinkled brain with googly eyes stuck on for good measure. The dean was currently engaged in his favorite pastime, complaining. I tell you, Professor Squiggles, these new students are getting softer every cycle. The dean's voice was a curious mix of gurgling and whining, like a drain trying to sing opera. Back in my day, we had to solve quantum equations while being chased by carnivorous math symbols. Professor Squiggles, a mass of writhing tentacles vaguely resembling a mop someone had spilled ink all over, made a noise that might have been agreement. Or indigestion, it was hard to tell. But sir, Squiggles burbled, surely the new impossible test will separate the wheat from the chaff. Or as we say on my homeworld, the delicious rock-eating larvae from the less delicious rock-eating larvae. The dean's eyes swiveled independently, one fixing on Squiggles while the other rolled dramatically. Yes, the impossible test, guaranteed to keep even the brightest students occupied for a lifetime. No one has ever completed it, you know. It's our crowning achievement in making students feel thoroughly inadequate. Just then the door burst open with a dramatic whoosh. A small green alien that looked like a cross between a lizard and a traffic light came barreling in, waving its arms frantically. Dean Zix Snorp, Professor Squiggles, we have a situation. It squeaked, its voice high-pitched enough to make dogs 3 galaxies over perk up their ears. What is it, Professor Blinky? The dean demanded, his tone suggesting he was already regretting asking. It's Blinky's eyes flashed through a series of colors faster than a disco ball on steroids. It's a human. The silence that followed was so profound you could have heard a neutrino drop. A human? Squiggles ventured, his tentacles curling in what might have been fear. Or hunger. Again, hard to tell. Yes, Blinky wailed. One of those Deathworlders from Earth. She's taking the impossible test. The dean's eyes bulged so much they were in danger of popping right out of his cerebral matter. What? But that's not possible. The test is designed to be unsolvable, a lifetime pursuit. Well, Blinky gulped, she's solving it. Fast. And so, dear readers, we find ourselves whisked away to the grand hall of infinite challenges. Read, a room so vast and empty it makes an intergalactic void look cozy, where our human protagonist is currently making galactic history, and probably giving a lot of aliens heartburn. Meet Sarah Johnson, 23, former barista and current exchange student from Earth. Sarah stood out in the sea of alien students like a sore thumb, mainly because she had thumbs at all, which was quite the novelty around these parts. Sarah was hunched over a glowing holo desk, her fingers flying across the controls faster than a cat on a keyboard chasing a virtual mouse. Her wild mop of curly hair seemed to defy the planet's gravity, creating a halo effect that made her look rather angelic. That is, if angels wore faded jeans, scuffed sneakers, and a t-shirt that proclaimed I, incomprehensible Earth symbol. The impossible test sprawled before her, a maze of multi-dimensional equations, philosophical conundrums, and what appeared to be a recipe for Cosmos' famous Aldebaran slug cookies. Don't ask. As Dean Zix Snorp, Professor Squiggles, and the still blinking Professor Blinky entered the hall, they were met with a scene of utter chaos. Solian students of all shapes and sizes were gathered around Sarah's station, their appendages or equivalent sensory organs slack with disbelief. I don't understand, a gelatinous cube student was saying, its voice bubbling with confusion. How is she doing this? I've been working on the first question for 3 years. 3 years? Scoffed a floating gas cloud. I've been here for a decade and I'm still trying to figure out how to log into the test system. Sarah, for her part, seemed blissfully unaware of the commotion she was causing. Her tongue stuck out slightly as she worked, occasionally muttering to herself. Okay, so if the quantum flux capacitor is inversely proportional to the square root of the universe's sense of humor, Carry the 1, divide by the number of licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. The dean pushed his way through the crowd, his brain-like body pulsating with a mixture of outrage and fascination. "A young lady," he bellowed, or at least attempted to. It came out more like a squeaky toy being slowly deflated. Sarah looked up, blinking owlishly behind a pair of thick-rimmed glasses. "Oh, hey there," she said cheerfully. "You must be Dean Zix Snorp. I'd shake your hand, but..." She gestured vaguely at his lack of appendages. "Anyway, cool test you've got here. Really makes you think, you know." The dean's eyes swiveled wildly. But it's impossible. The test is designed to be unsolvable." Sarah's brow furrowed. "Unsolvable? But I'm almost done." A collective gasp went up from the assembled aliens. Several fainted dramatically, while others began to mutter about the end times. How Professor Squiggles demanded, his tentacles flailing in agitation. "The test covers every field of knowledge in the notes." Sarah shrugged. "Well, yeah, but it's mostly just common sense, isn't it? Like this question about the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. The answer's obviously 42. 42? Professor Blinky repeated, baffled. "Sure, haven't you guys read Douglas Adams?" Sarah looked around at the sea of blank alien faces. "Huh, guess not. Earth literature, you should check it out sometime. Anyway, the rest is just basic problem solving. Oh, and I got a lot of help from this." She held up a small, rectangular device. The aliens leaned in, curiosity overcoming their shock. "What manner of advanced technology is this?" the dean asked, his voice hushed with awe. Sarah blinked. "It's a calculator. You know, TI 84. Got me through high school math." The silence that followed was so profound that you could have heard a pin drop. If, pins existed in this part of the galaxy and weren't considered lethal weapons due to their pointy nature. But Professor Squiggles stammered, his tentacles tying themselves in knots. "The test includes questions about the nature of reality itself, the fundamental building blocks of the universe, the secret to folding fitted sheets." Sarah nodded sagely. "Oh yeah, those were tricky. But when you grow up watching Bill Nye the Science Guy and how it's made, you pick up a thing or two. As for the fitted sheets, well, that's just black magic. No one knows how to do that." The dean's body was pulsating so rapidly now that he was in danger of achieving liftoff. "This is unprecedented, unheard of, inconceivable." "You keep using that word," Sarah muttered under her breath, grinning to herself. "But what about the advanced theoretical physics?" Professor Blinky squeaked. "The questions about manipulating the fabric of space-time itself." Sarah's eyes lit up. "Oh man, those were my favorite. I've been binge-watching Star Trek since I was a kid. Warp drives, transporters, replicators, that stuff is my jam. Plus, I wrote a fanfiction once where the Enterprise had to escape a collapsing universe by surfing a quantum wave. Guess all that technobabble came in handy." The assembled aliens exchanged bewildered glances. The concept of fanfiction was apparently as alien to them as Sarah herself. "And the philosophical questions?" a brave student ventured. "The ones about the nature of consciousness and free will?" Sarah waved a hand dismissively. "Please, I've had deeper existential crises deciding what to watch on Netflix. Besides, I took Philosophy 101 last semester. Did a whole paper on Descartes. I think, therefore I am, Although personally I prefer I drink coffee, therefore I am." As if to emphasize her point, Sarah reached for a large thermos and took a long swig. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, causing several nearby aliens to swoon in ecstasy. Apparently, caffeine was considered a controlled substance in most of the galaxy. But the dean was starting to sound like a broken record, or whatever the alien equivalent was. A malfunctioning psychic jellyfish, perhaps. "The test is designed to take a lifetime. How can you be almost finished in just..." He squinted at a nearby chronometer. 4 hours and 23 minutes. Sarah shrugged. "What can I say? I'm a millennial. We're used to speedrunning through life while the world burns around us. Plus, student loans. Gotta finish fast so I can get back to Earth and start paying those off before I'm eligible for alien social security." The dean's eyes swiveled to Professor Squiggles. "Is this legal?" he whispered, as if afraid the very concept of recklessly completing the impossible test might summon some cosmic authorities. Squiggles' tentacles writhed in what might have been a shrug. "Well, sir, we never actually specified a time limit. The assumption that it would take a lifetime was just that, an assumption." "Yes," Sarah chimed in, not looking up from her work. "You know what they say about assumptions. They make an ass out of you and Mimshin." She paused, considering, though I guess that doesn't really work in alien languages. Huh? The dean ignored her, turning to address the crowd of stunned students. This is clearly some sort of trick. A human couldn't possibly have the knowledge to complete the impossible test. Sarah sighed, finally looking up from her holodesk. Look, Dean Zix Snorp, was it? No offense, but you guys really need to update your data on Earth. We're not just some backwater death world anymore. We've got the internet now. The internet, Professor Blinky repeated, his eyes cycling through a confused rainbow of colors. Yeah, you know, the World Wide Web, the information superhighway, that thing Al Gore invented. Sarah rolled her eyes at their blank looks. It's like, imagine if you took all the knowledge in the universe, mixed it with cat videos and conspiracy theories, then gave everyone instant access to it. That's the internet. The aliens' expressions, those that had recognizable expressions anyway, range from horrified to intrigued. But that would be chaos. The dean sputtered. How do you separate truth from fiction? How do you verify sources? Sarah laughed. That's the neat part, you don't. You just learn to navigate through the sea of misinformation, develop critical thinking skills, and hope you don't accidentally join a cult along the way. It's like intellectual Darwinism. Where she turned back to her test, fingers flying over the controls once more. Besides, half of these questions are just advanced versions of the stuff we debate on Reddit every day. But if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? Please, we've moved on to if a meme goes viral in a parallel universe, does it affect our stock market? The dean's body was practically vibrating with indignation now. But the cultural questions, the intricate details of 1,000 alien civilizations. Sarah didn't even look up this time. Dude, I've been in more fandoms than you've had hot dinners. Or whatever the brain alien equivalent is, cold neural baths. Anyway, learning the intricate details of fictional cultures is like our thing. Did you know I can speak fluent Klingon? She demonstrated with a series of harsh, guttural sounds that made several nearby aliens flinch. Plus, Sarah continued, I've been to like 3 whole Comic-Cons. Trust me, after you've seen a Klingon, a Vulcan, and Darth Vader arguing over the last slice of pizza in the food court, intergalactic diplomacy is a breeze. The dean turned to his colleagues, his voice a desperate whisper. We must do something. If word gets out that a human completed the impossible test in less than a day, we'll be laughingstocks. Our funding will be cut. Our parking privileges revoked. Professor Squiggle's tentacles curled thoughtfully. Perhaps we could claim it was a clerical error, that we accidentally gave her the answers along with the test. Or Professor Blinky suggested, his eyes flashing a devious green, we could say it was all a dream. Yes, a mass hallucination caused by space gas. Sarah cleared her throat loudly. You know I can hear you, right? Your whispering isn't exactly subtle. Especially you, Professor Blinky. You literally light up when you're plotting. The alien professors had the grace to look embarrassed. Well, as embarrassed as a giant brain, a tentacle monster, and a traffic light can look. Besides, Sarah continued, turning back to her test, I've been live streaming this whole thing on Twitch Galaxy. We've got, about 50 million viewers right now. Yeah, cat's out of the bag, guys. The dean made a sound like a deflating balloon. 50 million? Sarah nodded. Yep. Turns out, people really enjoy watching a plucky earthling show up a bunch of stuffy alien professors. Who knew? She grinned at the camera floating nearby. Don't forget to like and subscribe, folks. And thanks for the donations. Maybe now I can afford those textbooks I need for next semester. The dean slumped, his body deflating until he resembled less a brain and more a sad, wrinkly raisin. It's over. My career, my reputation, my collection of rare quantum butterflies, all ruined. Sarah finally looked up from her test, her expression softening. Oh, come on, Dean. It's not that bad. Look at it this way, you've just made history. The first alien university to have a human ace the impossible test. Think of the publicity. The dean's eyes swiveled towards her, a glimmer of hope visible. Publicity. Sure. Sarah said enthusiastically, I mean, yeah, you might have to rename it the really difficult but not quite impossible test, but think of the marketing potential. Come to Galactic U, where even Deathworlders can thrive. You'll have students from all over the galaxy lining up to enroll. The alien professors exchanged glances. Slowly, the alien professors exchanged glances. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the dean began to reinflate. You know, Professor Squiggles ventured, his tentacles untying themselves. The human might have a point. This could be a remarkable opportunity. Professor Blinky's eyes flashed a tentative yellow. Indeed, we could rebrand ourselves as the university that challenges even the most formidable species in the galaxy. The dean's eyes swiveled rapidly, his giant brain practically visible through his translucent skin as it processed this new perspective. Yes, we won't be laughingstocks, we'll be trailblazers. The first institution brave enough to welcome Deathworlders. Sarah grinned, giving them a thumbs up. Now you're talking. Plus, think of the exchange program possibilities. You send some of your students to Earth, we send some humans here. It'll be like the ultimate culture shock reality show. The assembled alien students, who had been watching this exchange with a mixture of awe and confusion, suddenly burst into excited chatter. The gelatinous cube student wobbled enthusiastically. Oh, I want to go to Earth. I've always wanted to try this jello I've heard so much about. I think we might be related. The floating gas cloud pulsed with excitement. And I wish to experience this pollution you humans are so famous for. It sounds delightful. Sarah opened her mouth, then closed it again. You know what? Sure, why not? Earth would love to have you. She turned back to the dean. So what do you say, ready to make Galactic U the most exciting place in the universe? The dean's eyes focused on Sarah, a new determination visible in their googly depths. Miss Johnson, I believe we may have underestimated you. And perhaps we have underestimated humanity as a whole. Sarah shrugged. It happens. We're kind of used to it by now. Makes it more fun when we surprise people. Just then, a soft ding sounded from Sarah's holo desk. She glanced down, her eyes widening. Oh, would you look at that? I'm done. The entire hall fell silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath, which was quite a feat considering several of the students were sentient gases. Done? The dean whispered, his voice a mix of disbelief and awe. You've completed the impossible test. Sarah nodded, stretching her arms above her head. Yep, all done. Gotta say it was a fun challenge. Especially that last question about the secret to universal harmony. Didn't expect the answer to be don't panic, but I guess Douglas Adams really was onto something. She stood up, brushing off her jeans. So, do I get a diploma now or something? To maybe a certificate, ooh, or one of those neat floating holo badges I've seen some of the professors wearing. The dean, Professors Squiggles and Blinky, and the entire student body stared at Sarah in stunned silence. It was as if the entire universe had collectively blue-screened. Sarah cleared her throat. Guys, hello, Earth to Galactic U? Or, I guess Galactic U to Earth in this case. Slowly, ever so slowly, the dean floated towards Sarah. His eyes swiveled to meet hers, and for a moment, Sarah could have sworn she saw the entire cosmos reflected in those googly orbs. Miss Johnson, the dean said, his voice uncharacteristically solemn. In all my years, and believe me, when you're a sentient brain in a jar, those years start to add up. I have never seen anything like this. You haven't just completed the impossible test. You've rewritten the very definition of possibility itself. Sarah blinked. Wow, that's heavy, man. Do I at least get extra credit? The dean ignored her quip, turning to address the assembled crowd. My fellow scholars, esteemed students, and whatever the thing in the corner is that I'm pretty sure isn't enrolled here, we stand at the precipice of a new era. An era where the boundaries between possible and impossible are not walls, but doors waiting to be opened. He swiveled back to Sarah. Miss Johnson, on behalf of the Galactic University of Supreme Knowledge, and absolutely correct facts that are never wrong, I hereby confer upon you the highest honor we can bestow. Sarah leaned forward eagerly. An A? No, the dean said gravely. Something far greater. We bestow upon you a question mark. The hall erupted in gasps. Several students fainted dramatically while others began to chatter excitedly in a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and what sounded suspiciously like dial-up modem noises. Sarah, for her part, looked thoroughly confused. A question mark. Is this like the answer to the great question of life? The universe and everything is 42 kind of thing. Because I gotta tell you, I'm not sure I'm ready for that level of responsibility. I still sometimes put my shoes on the wrong feet. Professor Squiggles' tentacles wriggled excitedly. You don't understand, Miss Johnson. A question mark is the highest academic honor in the galaxy. It symbolizes the eternal quest for knowledge, the unending pursuit of truth, the ability to question everything, even the answers. Sarah finished, comprehension dawning on her face. Because the moment we think we know everything is the moment we stop learning, the dean concluded, a note of pride in his gurgling voice. Precisely, Miss Johnson. You have not only completed the impossible test, but you have demonstrated the most crucial quality of all, the ability to approach the universe with curiosity, humor, and an open mind. Sarah grinned. Well, When you put it like that, it sounds pretty cool. Do I get a fancy robe to go with my question mark? Maybe a staff, ooh, or a talking owl companion? The dean's eyes swiveled in what might have been an eye roll, if eyes not attached to a face could roll. Let's not get carried away, Miss Johnson, but perhaps we could discuss a teaching position. I have a feeling our students could learn a great deal from you. Sarah's eyes widened. Me, a professor at Galactic U, but I haven't even finished my bachelor's degree on Earth. Professor Blinky flashed a rainbow of colors. My dear, you've just redefined our understanding of intelligence and problem solving. I'd say that's worth at least a PhD in Earthling studies. Oh, Earthling studies. Sarah clapped her hands excitedly. I can see the course catalog now. Year 101, Introduction to Memes and Their Role in Interstellar Diplomacy. Year 202, Advanced Procrastination Techniques. Year 303, The Philosophic. All implications of pineapple on pizza, a debate that has raged for millennia. The dean nodded, his entire body bobbing with the motion. I believe we can arrange something along those lines. But first he turned to address the still stunned crowd. My fellow beings of higher education, let us celebrate this historic moment. For today we have witnessed the impossible become possible, the unthinkable become thinkable, and a Deathworlder consume enough caffeine to power a small star without experiencing cardiac arrest. The hall erupted in cheers, a cacophony of alien sounds that would have sent any Earth zoologist into a frenzy of confusion and delight. As the celebration kicked into high gear, with what appeared to be a spontaneous outbreak of interpretive dance from the gelatinous cube students, and a rousing chorus of quantum harmonic oscillations from the gaseous beings, Sarah found herself surrounded by curious aliens, all eager to learn more about this strange Deathworlder and her mysterious ways. Tell us, Earth being. A crystalline entity chimed, its facets glittering with curiosity. Is it true that your species intentionally consumes neurotoxins for pleasure? Sarah blinked. You mean alcohol? Yeah, that's a thing we do. Though to be fair, we also invented designated drivers and hold my beer moments, so it kind of balances out. A being that looked like a sentient cloud of sparkles shimmered inquisitively. And is it accurate that you voluntarily expose yourselves to dangerous stellar radiation for the purpose of altering your epidermal pigmentation? Tanning. Sarah laughed. Oh yeah, nothing says relaxation like lying motionless for hours while slowly cooking yourself. It's like being a rotisserie chicken, but with more skin cancer. The questions kept coming, each one more bizarre than the last. Sarah found herself explaining everything from the intricacies of social media. Yes, we really do spend hours looking at pictures of each other's meals, to the paradoxical nature of human fashion. Sometimes we intentionally buy clothes that already have holes in them. No, I can't explain why. As the impromptu QA session continued, the dean floated over to Professor Squiggles and Blinky, who were watching the proceedings with a mixture of fascination and mild alarm. Gentlemen, the dean gurgled, his tone serious despite the party atmosphere, I believe we have stumbled upon something truly remarkable here. To this human with her, what did she call it? Sass? Yes, her sass and her strange Earth knowledge could revolutionize our entire approach to education. Professor Squiggles' tentacles curled thoughtfully. Indeed, who would have thought that a species that still thinks digital watches are a pretty neat idea could have so much to teach us? Professor Blinky flashed a contemplative blue. Perhaps we've been too focused on accumulating knowledge and not enough on applying it, create it. These humans, with their memes and their cat videos and their ability to turn any situation into a source of humor, they might just be onto something. The dean's eyes swiveled to Sarah, who was now attempting to teach a group of amorphous blob students how to do the Macarena. The result was less a dance and more a gelatinous earthquake, but the enthusiasm was undeniable. I think, the dean said slowly, that we may need to update our university's mission statement. Perhaps something along the lines of embracing the absurd in pursuit of the profound. Professors Squiggles and Blinky nodded in agreement, their vastly different anatomies somehow conveying the same sense of academic excitement. As the celebration continued around them, with aliens of all shapes and sizes attempting to replicate Earth dances, swap memes, and engage in what they believed to be small talk, which mostly involved discussing the relative sizes of subatomic particles, Sarah found herself at the center of it all, grinning from ear to ear. As she looked around at the bizarre, beautiful chaos she had inadvertently unleashed upon this bastion of cosmic academia, and couldn't help but laugh. This, she realized, was what humanity did best. Not just surviving, not just adapting, but thriving in the face of the impossible. Taking the universe's most challenging test and turning it into a party. As she raised her coffee thermos in a toast to her new alien friends, Sarah couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy wouldn't be their technology or their resilience, or even their coffee. Maybe it would be their ability to look at the vast, terrifying, beautiful cosmos and say, with a grin and a shrug, well, that's weird. Let's poke it with a stick and see what happens. And as the party raged on, with alien professors attempting to moonwalk and student nebulae trying to master the art of the fist bump, one thing became abundantly clear: the galaxy would never be the same again. But then again, where would the fun be if it was? The Galactic University of Supreme Knowledge and absolutely correct facts that are never wrong. Now, with 100% more Earthling Senedinigans, was buzzing with activity. Literally, in some cases, as the new influx of insectoid students from the hive mind collective of Betelgeuse had brought with them a penchant for communicating via interpretive wing vibrations. Sarah Johnson, now Professor Johnson, much to her continued amusement and mild imposter syndrome, strode through the crystalline halls, her path clear despite the crowded corridors. This was less out of respect for her new position and more due to the fact that her students had learned early on that walking too close to Sarah often resulted in impromptu dance lessons or being recruited for flash mobs. "Professor Johnson," a voice called out, accompanied by the sound of frantic tentacle wiggling. Sarah turned to see Professor Squiggles undulating towards her, his tentacles a blur of motion. "Squiggy, my man, what's shaking? Besides you, I mean." Squiggles made a sound that might have been a sigh, if sighing involved gurgling. "Professor Johnson, we've talked about this. The use of informal appellations and hip Earth lingo is strictly limited to your Earthling Studies classes." Sarah grinned. "Aw, come on, Squiggy. You know you love it. I saw you trying to teach the quantum physics class how to do the worm yesterday, which, by the way, was hilarious given your unique physiology. If tentacles could blush, Squiggles would have been bright red. Yes, well, that was purely for educational purposes, demonstrating the undulating nature of wave-particle duality, you see." "Aha," Sarah nodded, her expression one of exaggerated belief. "And I suppose the disco ball you installed in the astrophysics lab is to help students better understand the nature of pulsars." Before Squiggles could formulate a suitably academic response, they were interrupted by the arrival of Dean Zix Snorp, who came floating down the corridor with all the grace of a sentient brain cancer. "Ah, Professor Johnson, Professor Squiggles," the dean gurgled, "just the beans I wanted to see. We have a situation in the cafeteria." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. The Arcturian shadow beings got into an argument with the photosynthetic Venusians over which side of the cafeteria should be better lit again." The dean's eyes swiveled in opposite directions, a sure sign of distress. "If only it were that simple. No, it appears that your latest cultural exchange initiative has had some unexpected consequences." Sarah's eyes lit up. "Ooh, did they finally get Taco Tuesday working? I told them it might be tricky without access to actual tacos, but I had faith in their ability to improvise with multi-dimensional space peppers and quantum guacamole." "Not exactly," the dean said slowly. "It seems that your suggestion to introduce Earth social media concepts has led to a rather intense competition among the student body. They're all trying to create what they believe humans would call viral content." Sarah blinked. "Okay, and that doesn't sound so bad. I mean, yeah, it can get a little out of hand sometimes, but..." "Professor Johnson," the dean interrupted, his tone grave. "There is currently a Zarblaxian hive mind attempting to recreate something called a Harlem Shake video in the middle of the cafeteria. 3 separate quantum singularities have formed due to the sheer concentration of cringe, and the space-time continuum is beginning to look a bit wobbly." "Wait." Sarah's eyes widened. "Ooh, yikes, yeah, that's not great, although, gotta admit, I'm kind of impressed they managed to destabilize space-time with just a dance video. Back on Earth, it usually takes at least a boy band or a reality TV show to do that." Professor Squiggles' tentacles writhed anxiously. "This is precisely why we need to be more cautious about introducing Earth concepts to the wider galactic community. Next thing you know, they'll be trying to recreate memes and we'll have an infestation of extra-dimensional grumpy cats to deal with." Sarah held up her hands in a placating gesture. Okay, I get it. Things got a little out of hand. But look on the bright side, at least they're engaging with the material, right? I mean, isn't that what education is all about? Inspiring students to think outside the box. or outside the hypercube in this case. The dean's eyes swiveled towards her, his expression unreadable, largely due to the fact that, as a brain, he didn't really have what could be called a face. Professor Johnson, while we appreciate your unique approach to galactic education, perhaps it's time we had a discussion about implementing some safeguards. We can't have the fabric of reality unraveling every time someone decides to attempt a TikTok challenge. Sarah nodded, trying and failing to look appropriately chastised. Fair enough. How about this? We set up a committee to review Earth cultural exchanges before they're implemented. We can call it the Galactic Understanding and Assessment of Earthling Dankness Committee, or GUARD for short. Professor Squiggle's tentacles perked up. That actually sounds like a reasonable idea, though I'm not entirely sure what dankness means in this context. Trust me, Sarah grinned, it's better that way. Now, shall we go deal with our Harlem-shaking friends before they accidentally summon an elder god or something? I hear Cthulhu is a bit of a party pooper. As the unlikely trio made their way towards the cafeteria, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Your introducing Earth culture to the galaxy had its challenges. There were bound to be a few hiccups and space-time anomalies along the way. But as she watched a group of bioluminescent algae students attempt to recreate the Charlie Bit My Finger video with predictably messy results, she knew that the universe would never be the same. And really, where was the fun in a static, unchanging cosmos anyway? If humanity's gift to the galaxy was a little chaos, a lot of laughter, and the occasional universe-threatening dance craze, well, Sarah could think of worse legacies. Besides, she thought as they rounded the corner to face whatever madness awaited them in the cafeteria, at least it was never boring. And in a universe as vast and wondrous as this one, that was saying something.